Hey everyone, it's Irene Lyon here. Welcome to this special topic Q&A. It's a Q&A for coaches, healers, mind body pros, teachers, trainers, anyone who is a helper working with others, whether one-on-one or in group. This could be for school teachers, social workers, all around how my 12-week program, SmartBody SmartMind, which is open for registration right now. So I'm dating this. How and why this work, this program can aid and inform and help you as someone working with other folks. Now, this is going to be Q&A based. I got a lot of great questions. It's clearly going to still be education. So if you aren't in this category, but you are someone who maybe works with someone who's a healer or a coach, or you go to a class, or you work with a therapist, or maybe you're a parent and you want to understand this for your kids, this will still apply to you because we're all in the same boat. So welcome to everyone here. I'm going to give a moment or two to just make sure that people get on. I'm going to make sure my systems are all working here, which I think they are. And if you are on, I can see 30 people already joining me. Let me know where you are. Let me know if you are a SmartBody SmartMind member already. If you're thinking about it, let me know if you are a coach, if you are a healer, if you're in that world of helping others and catalyzing and all that sort of stuff. So as we wait for a little bit of interaction here, I'll just, yes, good. All right, I can see some thumbs up. And then finally, just very quick housekeeping. If you haven't yet started my Healing Trauma 3-part video training, get in there now and watch those videos. Even if you've already signed up for SmartBody SmartMind, that is kind of an unofficial prerequisite because it just gives you that overview of what the heck I'm talking about, what trauma is, how trauma gets trapped in the system, what it means to heal at the neuroplastic level and really sequence our healing. And this is something I'm going to get into pretty extensively today with the questions that I have, because it relates to a lot of the healers and helpers who are still struggling with their own health, right? And so the one thing I will say is where I am right now in my journey, doing this with you guys, educating, running courses, teaching workshops, when I am traveling, mentoring individuals who are at that level of working with others, within my team. This didn't happen overnight, right? This occurred, quick history. I was in fitness and in exercise science. I did a degree in biomedical science and research in my 20s. So I've got 2 science degrees, and then I injured myself pretty damn badly in my 20s, and won't go into the whole story, but even though I had trained in exercise rehabilitation, and this is an important story for those of you who feel lost because you don't have the tools to help your clients in the nervous system realm, I was working with myself, and even what I had learned in my very fabulous university and professional education wasn't enough to help me heal my body. And so I had to look elsewhere for what to do. And this has always kind of been my MO, my modus operandi, if you don't know what that means. My just way of seeking truth in the world is to continually not only ask questions and search, but to learn and to train and to not practice hypocrisy. I'm not going to say that I know how to do something just by theory alone. I'll practice it. And so when I didn't know how to heal my own body through my rehabilitation schooling, I went into the Feldenkrais method and I became a Feldenkrais practitioner. And I used it for myself first, and it completely transformed my body. So I knew I had to study that, because if I didn't have those tools on board, I wouldn't be able to help people to the degree that I helped myself. Then I got into private practice, doing really great work in a ski town called Whistler, British Columbia, working with really high-level athletes, all sorts of injuries. And then there was a moment in 2008 when I was seeing a whole bunch of people that were coming to me, because I was the person that people went to and everything else didn't work. Chiro, physio, massage, counseling, all sorts of things. And then there was a moment where I hit a threshold of my knowledge and I was like, I don't know what to do with a small subset of these people who clearly had a lot of traumatic stuff happen to them, whether it was accidents, whether it was early abuse. And so I went back to the drawing board and I asked questions. That's what led me to the work of Peter Levine and Somatic Experiencing. I'm going to take a little drink of water here. And that work, understanding and learning about somatic experiencing and how trauma gets trapped in our human bodies, and it's what creates our mental, physical, emotional, relational dis-eases and illnesses and troubles, that just opened my eyes to a whole other world. And then I knew I still want to work with people. I still want to work with people at this physical level. I better get this next step on my, in my toolkit. And so I went and I studied SE for quite a few years. I finished the basic level training and I kept going because it was very clear. And some of you here are either studying SE or thinking about it. The base level training doesn't cover it all, as no one training covers everything, at least not now. And so I did master classes with Peter Levine extensively. I got to the point of assisting at the master class level with him and his higher level senior colleagues, my colleagues. And then there's one more piece. I realized that I needed a little bit more. I needed to learn how to understand early trauma and developmental trauma and work at the very somatic. Even though somatic experiencing is somatic, I had to go deeper into working with the somatic systems by learning with one of my colleagues and one of my teachers, Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell. And that got me to that next level of understanding how to work with the stress organ physiology and the joints of the body and the diaphragms and the fascia and the bone and the fluid systems and the brain systems and all the things that are within our body that get trapped and stuck and put in high alert or shut down when we've had a lot of traumatic stress. So that led me to study this work, that next form of work, and it still continues. I'm learning more to this day about energy systems and past life trauma and quantum physics and all these other fields that are continuing to grow and evolve. So I share that story with you because I believe, and this is my belief, so everyone's going to be a little bit different. If you're in the world of healing, helping, coaching that isn't a specific traditional system, like say orthopedic surgery or dietetics, it's not the best example, but these very tested and tried professions, let's say within the medical system, or maybe nursing, or maybe physical therapy, while there's ways that individuals in those systems can continue to learn and get continuing education, and I know they do, because I know doctors who need to keep up their credits and they have to keep learning. In our world of coaching and healing at the somatic level, at this point, there is no accreditation. I can never say that. There's no accreditation process. Oh, my tongue's twisted this morning. There's no body that's governing this work that I do, right? I'll be really honest. There's no continuing education credits if you are an SE practitioner. They don't make sure that you're continuing to do your own work and do continuing education. The practitioner has to take that on themselves, and some do and some don't, right? And so right now we're kind of in the Wild West, if you speak, if we look at it that way, where there isn't a university course that's 4 years long where we learn everything that I have voluntarily and put myself on a path to learn through just sniffing out the next thing. So I believe in the future, and we're not there yet, there will be some kind of certification, there will be some kind of actual process, and that's what I want to work on. I was working on it earlier last year, and then with everything that occurred in the world, it kind of was put on a hold because of travel and such. But my desire is to create a system, a program, a training, professional training that is very robust and very solid that takes people through what I have learned, but of course not over 25 years or 22 years, which has been my schooling thus far at my age right now of 45. So I wanted to give you just that overlay because SBSM, Smart Body, Smart Mind, while it's for the person, it's for you, it will completely inform, obviously, you and learn at your nervous system level. It'll help you become an apprentice of your system, regulate at all the levels that I've just been talking about, and it will make you able to connect and attune to your clients, your groups who you teach 1,000 times fold, because you are now learning the language. You have the language of this nervous system on board, which will allow you to be able to work with them or the group in a way that is just way more organic and attuned, kind of like a very healthy mother who is demonstrating secure attachment and really solid attunement with her newborn. That's kind of what we're doing. We're wanting to get that absolute gut instinct knowing inside of us, being able to go with all of the things that occur in our group setting, in our one-on-one setting, to stay regulated and to stay connected and somatically aligned so that our client student group can also experience that they can experience safety and co-regulation with us, so they then learn self-regulation. So I wanted to start with that little bit of a primer just to give you an overview of where I've come from. I created Smart Body, Smart Mind. I did a longer video on this called The Origin Stories of SBSM. But in a nutshell, I created this 12-week program when I was in private practice because I realized that people needed way more than just seeing me once a week for years on end. And some of the clients I had worked with, they had seen me 3-4 years once a week, maybe every other week. And I gotta say, they had really good results. And I have seen more transformation in the stories from my alumni who have never met me in person. I was thinking about this the other day because they're immersing in a curriculum that they are going at their own pace. They always have the learning. They always have the support of the lessons, the audios, the videos. They can come back and do it again. When you're working one-on-one with someone, the therapist, the practitioner has to set a boundary. They can't be in constant text messaging with their clients, right? And so there is something very powerful about taking this somatic work that, again, is my expertise, the Feldenkrais method, somatic experiencing, the somatic practice works, into one thing and offering it to people and having them practice it in the comfort of their own homes. So I'm going to get into the chat here and then I'll get into some questions. Got a frog in my throat today. Hello from Sweden. Hello, registered already. Can't wait. Toronto. Hey there from San Diego, personal trainer. I used to be one as well. I guess you could say I still am. Hello from Pakistan. Signed up for SBSM. Awesome. And 21 days. All right, joining SBSM for the first time this year. I'm a coach. Brilliant. Detroit, Michigan. Hello, I'm a mom that wants to help herself and her children. Perfect, mom. That's great. This is for the mothers and fathers out there, this will transform how you are able to be with your kiddos. It's just, I cannot say it any more clearly than that. When we have regulation on board and we can see through the lens of the autonomic nervous system, there's a lot less blame and shame that goes on with parenting because we understand what that immature animal is going through, because they are, right? Especially when they're really, really little. I mean, there's some adults that are immature animals too, but when they're little and we're responsible for them, we need to give them the best environment so that they can flourish into their own mature adult human being. And those first few years are so important. All right. Hello from New Zealand. Hello, Netherlands. Hello from Nova Scotia. You're enrolled for the first time in SBSM. Awesome. A Reiki practitioner. Beautiful. We've got quite a few people that practice energy work, psychic work, Reiki work. Life leadership and inner work coach. Awesome. All right. Signed in for SBSM. You have a BA in psychology. Oh, great. This is going to just blow your mind. Hello, another psychotherapist. This is wonderful. So great. Hello from South Africa. Oh, awesome. An alum. Hello from, I think AK is Arkansas. No, Alaska. I'm bad with my state abbreviations. Okay. Thank you so much for all of your comments here. I'm going to get into the questions. Okay. I just love reading. Netherlands. Beautiful. Okay. Promise, going to get into them. All right. So first question that came in from Laura. So you ask, I'd like to know, so you're a craniosacral therapist. I'd like to know if there are hands-on exercises to do with kids in the SBSM program. I'm asking as a craniosacral therapist in training and as a mother. So the SBSM curriculum isn't teaching you how to do specific maneuvers and manipulations on your body or on someone else's body. So I'll make that very clear. The course is designed for personal learning, personal growth, personal healing, personal self-regulation work. That being said, because we have a lot of people who are in the bodywork industries, and I know this from getting to know my alum over the years, the course curriculum, so as an aside, SBSM has theory and it has experiential practical lessons. A lot of the lessons involve self-touch. A lot of the lessons are working at the stress organ level. So as a craniosacral therapist, you'll understand what working at the diaphragm levels are. You'll understand what working at the joint levels are, the fluid body, the organ levels, all that stuff. The intention and the attention that you use and learn through my neurosensory exercises, that's what I've coined, which are teaching you how to literally drop into the here and now. I don't like the word grounding, but some people would call it that. Dropping into the here and now, connecting to the environment, learning how to orient, and then learning how to direct intention and attention to offer cellular safety to all of these spaces that I've just mentioned, as well as others like the gut, the brainstem, the heart space, all these areas. When you do this on yourself, and then you work with, say, a client or you're with your kids, I can't see it. Basically, it is hard to not integrate that stuff over. Now, I have been in training situations where I've assisted at trainings and people will learn in the classroom and then they'll go to their private practice and they don't know how to transfer their knowledge and their experiential learning effortlessly into their existing practice. I don't think that's the fault of the person. I think that's the fault of the teacher and the way the training has been created. So one of the things we are very, very stringent about is ensuring that you are integrating this work into your life. So for example, you're learning how to touch your diaphragms, right? And again, this might not make sense to a lot of people, but if you are at the osteopathic cranial massage level, you understand this. There's these containers within our body that hold affect and emotion. When we're traumatized, they get stuck, they got shut down, they get armored, they get braced. So when you start working with these with yourself in SBSM, which is what we do, and then let's say your little one comes in and they're scared and you give them a hug, you can tune in to their kidney adrenals and imagine their adrenals and kidneys softening. Now, I don't have to sit you down in a training for 2 weeks to teach you that, because my hope is that we've done a good job at teaching you how to do it with yourself so that when you are giving your kiddo that hug and they're scared, or you're working with your client, you can just have that awareness on board. Now, the difference is that we are not in SBSM teaching you how to navigate traumatic memories with clients. We're teaching you how to work with that with yourself, but not with your clients. So you got to keep your scope of practice in check, right? And do not underestimate the power of the work and the power of how strong a person's system might be bound to certain traumas. So in other words, don't try to go find yourself fixing people's traumatic experiences in practice, but you can be a human being, right? I steal this from my colleague, Kathy Kane. She says, if anything, just be in the scope of practice of being a human being. Be gentle, be kind, be patient, connect with yourself, connect with them, right? If we just did that, so much would be easier in our world. So while we don't, to go back just to kind of complete this question, Laura, I don't show you how to work with others. I show you how to work with you. And then based on a person's ability to be creative and see how that integrates with, of course, our direction, you'd be surprised how this can transfer to the work that you do. Of course, though, like I said, we're not teaching you how to work with specific traumatic pieces. But, you know, if I have a friend who comes over and they're freaking out because they just lost their pet, it doesn't take a brain scientist to know, well, let's just, you know, do you need a cup of tea? Let them cry. What do you need? You know, what can I do for you? As opposed to trying to fix the problem because the pet died, right? So it's this way of how can we be human and be empathetic, but with this nervous system lens on board, we allow that person who's in distress to orient to their own space. They guide what they need, right? I'm not going to say, you know what you need? You need to just take 10 deep breaths. This is what happens when a dog dies. You just take 10 deep breaths, calm down, close your eyes, and everything will be fine, right? And that's kind of how and I'm being a bit more dramatic there, but we wouldn't do that. Just like we wouldn't do that with a kid who's having a tantrum. We would let them have their activation and get it out, make sure they're safe so they can come down naturally. So again, there's a lot of really interesting things that occur when we start to learn all the elements within SBSM and we start to see it pop in the world around us. Most of my alum will say when they get into this work, they start to have more compassion for themselves, but also humanity. They have more compassion for that idiot that's, you know, doing the thing that they're doing at the shopping market. They understand why they're doing that. It's not because they're trying to be a menace. It's their survival physiology is off, you know, it's off the rails. And then we can add goodness and kindness and energy to that without getting, you know, mixed up in it. Okay. All right. Oh, Laura. I was like, oh, someone has the exact same question. And that's because this is the same question. So I hope that answers your question. The other thing I will say too about all the body workers here, you will find when you do this work that your desire to push and get an effect to happen becomes less pronounced. By that, I mean, you start to let the person's system guide you as opposed to you guiding them. Now, for some professions, that might be different. If I have a broken bone and I have to get it fixed by an orthopedic surgeon, I don't want that surgeon to be like, well, I wonder what I should do first. Let's see what Irene's system is telling me while the blood is spurting out of the brachial artery, right? No, there are certain levels of discernment where some professions you need to go in and do, and others you are there to help catalyze at that craniosacral level or at that soft tissue level or at that skeletal osteopathic chiropractic level or at that coaching level or at that occupational therapist level, right? So you got to find a way to take your scope of practice and then make it that much more better and more refined. Someone says, everything you're saying is exactly what I've been looking for in my training as a coach. 100%, Andrea. And that is because this is new stuff and it's the way forward. I'm pretty certain with that based on the results I've seen with my clients and those who are coaches and healers and helpers. It is what most probably don't realize they need. They might not know that this is what they're looking for. And then they come across it and they're like, this. And this is what happened to me. Remember in 2008, when I didn't know what to do with all of these clients who were coming to me with a lot of horrific, traumatic things. And I was there with my skill set, but it wasn't enough, right? And then I got this next little piece on, and it was just like poof, it just blew open a whole other world. Was that, of course, everything? No, it wasn't, but it gave me enough to work with those trickier situations. Hello, Candace from Music City. I want to set up a good foundation for a romantic relationship and be a mother in the future. Well, my dear, this is great. I know that's not a coach-related question, but holy moly, guacamole, if we could teach all of our young folk this work now, I predict in 100 years we could have in a completely different world, because we are then creating new humans that have regulated people that are growing them and then training them and being with them and teaching them self-regulation. We won't get into relationships that then break apart, because we get into relationship with a partner who maybe doesn't get all of this, but there's boundaries set and there's a knowledge. I'm working on this. Do you want to work on your stuff? Great, let's work together. You don't want to work on your stuff? Okay, I'm out, right? There needs to be that level. Is just, if we can get to that, wow, it'll be a great, great time here on planet Earth. Okay, next question. This is from Linda. And Linda is interested in taking SBSM, and you are a Feldenkrais practitioner. And I've come to believe that understanding more about trauma and having supporting practices would be a benefit to my people. Yes, and yourself as well, yes. So you say I have a pretty substantial bit of ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. I've developed a beautiful working life around it. I know myself well. What happens is I tend to spend a lot of money, get excited about online learning communities, and then don't seem to find the time or structure to do the work. Even though you've done the bee's knees and clearly communicating time expectations and laying out the course, I'm wondering if it's possible to speak live to someone to help me create a picture for myself of what doing this course would look like in my daily life. It'd be a tremendous benefit and help me feel confident that I will utilize my investment. So this is a great question, Linda, and I've got a few things. So great to meet another Feldenkrais colleague. Just so you know, we have many people who have gone through SBSM who are Feldenkrais trained, and there's some on our site that talk about their stories. So this is, in my opinion, the way forward with the Feldenkrais method. Whether it continues as the Feldenkrais method or something else, we need this understanding when we're asking people to connect with developmental patterns and movement patterns that maybe have never been opened up or got shut down due to abuse, due to injuries, due to unsafety in the environment. So the other thing I will mention, and I hope you know this, but ADHD and ADD, as we've seen through the research, is a result of stored traumatic stress. It is a result of the system being in dysregulation. So for yourself as a general human being, be it in your practice or in life, doing SBSM for you will help this piece of intensity that you live with. In other words, it'll make it such that, from again my experience, such that the world that you're living in can be a little less controlled, not out of control, but a little less controlled, so that there's a little bit more wiggle room for just things that are not as deemed, this is how things have to be. So I wanted to put that in there. Here's what I'm going to say. So we're not talking, you're not here talking to me live, but I'm going to say what I suggest. Each week when we do our labs, we give you a one sheet that describes how we suggest you go through the program. I don't have one with me here, but it's like Monday, do lesson 1, Tuesday, take a break, Wednesday, do this and review this. And so we have this, we call them suggested pathway. Of course, people sometimes use them, sometimes they don't, but we offer that to you. And so that is how we help the students figure out how to pace themselves. The other thing I'm going to say, I'm going to give you reassurance that you're not alone. This is a very common trait when we know that we have stored survival stress, is we get into something like SmartBody SmartMind. There's excitement, right? It's a bit of a survival energy blast. And then when that thrill is over and we've come down the other side, we don't have that oomph and that energetic, adrenalized energy to push us forward. And I like to actually look at this work a little differently. So what I'm going to say is going to seem a bit odd, but what if you don't get excited about it? What if you don't get excited about it? What if you just have a mindset that is, this is essential, just like drinking water, just like oxygen, brushing my teeth, making sure I have food in the fridge. This is a mundane, essential necessity so that I can work on myself, but I can also gain the skills to have a better lens to work with my clients. Because I agree, when we have, it's like New Year's resolutions. That's why it's just a terrible thing. We get all excited. It's all hype, hype, hype. There's a burst of energy, adrenalized survival energy, and then that can only be maintained for so long because our system doesn't want to stay in that excited state, right? It's like falling in love for the first time. If one were to stay in that euphoric few week or few month buzz when you're first connecting with another human being that you are really in love with, and it's like, whoa, this is the person. If you were like that for the next 10 years, nothing would get done and you would burn out your system, right? So I would say, don't get excited about SBSM. Just say, this is essential. I need to do it. And use the support that we offer. So we have Q&A calls. Again, part of the features, there are consistent Q&A calls over the course of the 12 weeks, live via Zoom, training calls that are at a specific time. So that's one way to stay, on track and have a routine. And then we have a forum within our program site where you can ask questions. And then we also have a separate group, social media group via Facebook. I know it's not the best thing, but that's what we're using because it's the best medium so far, where you can connect with your peers, right? So there's all these little nuggets of areas that you can connect with others, get your questions answered, and follow the curriculum, but also design it for you. So I hope that answers some of those questions for you. But I cannot say enough how much those who are in this Feldenkraisian world benefit from getting this information on board. It will change how you see everything you do in your practice. All right. I'm going to get to a question from Amber that was directed to us, to me. It's going to come into the chat here so I don't miss anything. And I'm going to take priority to the questions that are related to coaches and healers and how this helps for them. If you guys have a question that is not related to that, if there's time, I might get into it, but judging by the time, I won't have time today. I'll be doing another Q&A on Friday and then a final one on Sunday, which is final day for registration. Hello, Candace, you're a performance artist. Awesome. We have a few people who have gone through this who are clowns and dancers, and they find such cool ways to integrate this work into their world. Ursa asks, do you think you will have a training in the near future to teach clients how to work with trauma with clients? I sure hope so. I started this process. All the Post-it notes are over there with an educator, like a real educator within the school systems, to outline a curriculum. And then, of course, all the crazy stuff happened last year. And I will not do a training if it is only online. At least that's where I'm at right now. So until travel becomes a little less insane and much more open, I'm going to wait because I want to do it right. I don't want to do it in a half-assed way, to be honest. I will say this, for anyone who wants to do this future training with me, SmartBody SmartMind will be a prerequisite. Of course, I can't make any guarantees that we're going to do this training because I don't know what's going to occur next year and next year. My desire and my hope, so send a little prayer into the universe, is that we can get this going, because I see a massive need for a real professional training. And I know that I'm that person that can make that happen. But all things in good time. I believe in alignment and in timing and divine timing. My sense is there's a reason why we needed to wait a few years. I think we needed to just get more regulation on board for all of the individuals and those who want to do this work. And I'm going to get into something around this lines in the next few questions. Okay, so this is from Amber. And Amber writes, I'm really thinking about doing the program as I had a lot of pain over the last few months since completing Advanced 1 for Somatic Experiencing. So Somatic Experiencing, again, work of Peter Levine, that's what I am trained in. And Advanced 1 is the third segment of the training. And this is where we start to get into more of the body work. We start to get into joints and diaphragms in the areas of the body that I just talked about that store really deep shock trauma, and they also store deep affect and early traumatic elements. So just to give you an example, when I went through my SE training, when I finished the third segment, the second part of the third segment, my system totally blew apart. I did way too much. I didn't know what was going to hit me. And I was kind of incapacitated for 2 years. And I don't say that to scare anyone. I'm just being really honest. The training was wonderful and I took it up like water, but there wasn't a preparation for teaching us what might be lurking in our systems. And it took me, even to this year, I'm still processing old shock traumas from concussions and falls and centrifugal forces from my days flying in the sky. And so right now I'm still working on that stuff, and yet I'm regulated. So I don't say this to scare people. We can be working on really deep stuff, but still have regulation in our body. So Amber, I just want to give you that little hit to say, keep going. It gets easier, but sometimes it gets a little worse before it gets better, but keep on the track. So you say, obviously I've been doing a lot of sessions personally, but I wanted to see if you would think this would be a refresher or if you think it would be new information for me who's gone through most of the program already. The only reason I ask is it's expensive, so I just want to make sure I utilize my money in the most effective way. Thank you so much. So I do believe that this will really aid and give you more knowledge and more resource. The other thing to note is that the base level SE training is not everything. So in SBSM, I bring in material that I've learned at the masterclass level with Peter Levine. I'm bringing in information that I've learned through Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell. I'm not giving it to you guys as a way for you to teach others. It's for you. It's as if we are working one-on-one together. But of course, through audio lessons and through the course online. What I can say, Amber, is if I think about the people that work for me, my moderation team, they're all on my website if people want to check them out. Many of them started out with me and I got to know them because they were already SEPs and high-level SEPs, and they decided to do SmartBody SmartMind without me even knowing that they were going to do it. And so they went through it and it informed them greatly. And it's because it isn't just SE. SBSM is not somatic experiencing. SmartBody SmartMind is my concoction, if you will, of putting all these things together in one big pot of soup, right? So when I'm guiding you through an orienting lesson, or I'm guiding you through working with the diaphragms or the mediastinum, which isn't taught in the SE training, working with the kidney adrenals, working with the gut, the brainstem, working with the spine and the movements of the body, which is very Feldenkraisian, I am bringing in all of the pieces into one space. I am saying, okay, this is a bit more Feldenkrais based, but I'm bringing in the pieces from working with the stress organs, working with the orienting responses, working with impulse. So it's a very different kind of system. The other thing, Amber, is I know that when two of our moderators who work with Team Lion or used to, they've gone on to do their own things, which is great, but they were doing SBSM while they were doing the SE training. And they said both to me, if I wasn't doing SBSM alongside SE training, I would be absolutely lost. And I'm not saying that to hit the SE training, but there isn't enough time in that base level training, which is 36 days only, FYI. There isn't enough time to integrate it all, to keep practicing, to keep practicing, to keep practicing. You would never graduate a medical doctor, a surgeon, a massage therapist in 36 days, along with some of the private sessions and consulting sessions you have to do. It would never happen. And so The base level training is wonderful, but again, in my professional opinion, it is not enough. And so I do believe that this would really inform you, Amber. And most importantly, it'll help you with a lot of this pain that you're feeling that has summoned up from going, nose first into the advanced levels, maybe without enough preparation. The other thing, while there is a prerequisite to do the SE training, there's no prerequisite to have a certain level of sessions already or a certain level of understanding of your own self. So, just want to put that out there that it's not a perfect system. It's a great training, but it's not enough. It's really not enough. And I know that just based on the emails we get and what we hear from our students in SBSM. So just know that because someone is trained in SE, it doesn't make them necessarily a regulated person. I did a video/article on this a little while ago. For those of you here who aren't healers and practitioners and coaches and trainers, but you want to know, well, how do I find someone good? I did something called How to Find a Good Somatic Practitioner about 2 years ago. Now, this is also good for the coaches and trainers to listen to or to watch and read, because I outline what I have seen makes a good somatic practitioner. And the number one thing is that they are doing their own work. Point blank. If we are not continually doing our own work, it would be like a fitness coach going into their fitness training, and then once they're done, they stop exercising, right? Or someone who is into food and nutrition, just being good at eating when they're doing their nutrition training, and then when they stop, they throw all their good practices out the door, right? Or out the window. And so it's really important to know that your practitioner is doing their own work, and you have the right to ask, I believe, what are you doing to continue to take care of yourself, to continue to work on your stuff? If a coach says, I am enlightened and I've got rid of all of my anxiety and I'm 100% healed, be a little cautious about that. Okay. And like I said, everyone, if you've got a question here that isn't related to how this might help you if you are considering to do SBSM as a trainer, coach, healer, professional, I won't get to your question. It's not because I don't want to get to it. It's just I'm keeping this dedicated to this. All right, the next one is from Ola. And you say, if someone is thinking of potentially doing a training in somatic experiencing, what is the benefit of doing this program rather than going straight to a certified course? Of course, apart from the time. So I kind of just answered that, actually. It gives you self-knowledge. It gives you the tools to know how to be in your body first and understand stress physiology at your level, in some ways more than what you will get in an SE training. As I've said, there is no time in that training to do deep dives into your sensory awareness. You do have to get personal sessions, but even those personal sessions are limited to what you are learning in that segment. And so there's a little bit of a disconnection in some ways. So if one goes into, and it doesn't have to be an SE training, it could be a massage therapy training, it could be medical school, it could be physiotherapy school, it could be school teaching, learning how to be a teacher with kiddos. Having the SmartBody SmartMind curriculum in your noggin, in your brain, and the knowledge and in your body embodied will just make you a more regulated, aware, embodied individual to be able to navigate and listen to your system when you're in these situations. I saw people in trainings push their limits and never come back because they just didn't have the knowledge of how to set boundaries, how to say no to something. It was tragic in some ways, I got to admit. I mean, I'm really glad I went through that training, but there are elements that are missing. Okay, then the second question that Ola has, is it a good time to get into the program while going through big life transitions, looking for a new home and a new job? Would it be too overwhelming? Really, I'll put this question back to you, Ola. Don't make it overwhelming for yourself. right? And so there's a way for us to do a lot and not get overwhelmed. So it might mean that you do a little less. It might mean that you have to be very diligent at blocking off time to do the lessons. But I do know that there are people that have gone through SBSM who have been in massive life crisis. Some people have been homeless, living out of their cars, believe it or not. Some people have been in abusive relationships. Some younger students have been living in toxic homes with their parents and have gotten out of those situations. So you have to know yourself and know what you need to do so that you can do this, if you're feeling pulled to do this, without being overwhelming. So I can't tell you how to not be overwhelmed, other than you've got to listen to your body and put the structures and resources in place so that the work can get done and you aren't overwhelmed. Okay, great question. Let me just go through the comments here. There's one I'm going to slip in because it'll help everyone here. Also the coaches. Claire asks, are there any conditions or syndromes that SBSM learning and ongoing implementation would not assist with? You know, I'm going to tell a story. I remember being in a master class with Peter, and he had just done Peter Levine, founder of SE, and he had just done a demo with someone. The details aren't important, other than the person was very, very neurologically challenged. It wasn't just trauma. It was there was something around paralysis of part of the body. And I remember they walked in with a very struggled gait. He did the session, we watched, they left. The session was the session and the theme of the program, if I can remember correctly, was on anger and healthy life force aggression and depression. And so the person left, and we all watched this woman just walk out, not perfectly, but there was an ease, there was a flow through her body that wasn't there. And there was a colleague of mine sitting in the front row. She was a psychiatrist, if I can recall. And she asked Peter the question, so is there anything that SE can't help with? Because I think even her, as a medical doctor, was shocked that he didn't do body work with her. He didn't do stretches. He didn't do balance work. He just worked with what was there, using the skill set that he has. And she got up and had fluidity through her whole central nervous system, spine, skeletal motor, etc. And Peter just sort of sat there, and he can be pretty funny sometimes. And he was like, well, ingrown toenail? That's a true story. And so it was a joke, but it also was a seriousness. So if someone has like a staph infection, or I know it's not a laughing matter, or something that is like, I used this example the other day, if someone has an amputated limb, if someone has a blood genetic defect, those sorts of things, I would say that those conditions will help an individual be more present in their body and more regulated, but it's probably not going to grow back that arm. It's probably not going to fix a blood genetic problem like a clotting mechanism. That being said, we've had people that have gone through this work who have type 1 diabetes, and learning about the awareness of their body has allowed them to know how to listen to their physiology and their hormonal level and their stress levels. And they've even said it was actually Medea, Crystal, you can pop up her video. It saved her. She said, I probably wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for this work, because she wasn't listening. She was pushing. Her stress levels were high, and that will exacerbate a condition that is genetic or is hormonal or is syndromal. Okay. Elise says, I'm a body worker having I am a body worker having epilepsy. I do not want to go into hyperarousal. I feel like I've answered this. Activation from an unconscious trigger and experience a seizure as it damages the body mind. So epilepsy, again, there's seizures sometimes that are non-epileptic, then there's seizures that are epileptic. The one thing I know from working a little bit with epilepsy, or I should say seizures, I'll be more clear there, and watching my colleagues work with folks who have got seizure-based issues coming through their body, is to really learn how to listen. It's actually very similar to what I was just talking about with our SBSM client who is type 1 diabetic, or student, I should say, is being able to really get to know the body and the physiology allows us to catch the prodroma. The prodromal means what is happening before something flips the switch that causes the migraine headache, the seizure, the outbreak in hives, the insulin, the diabetic response that crashes us. So I'll just say that as a general whole, when we can get our physiology more in line with our body, mind, environment connections, we can actually start to harm the system less, right? Harm it less. Okay, gonna get back to the questions here. This one is from Grace. So my question is more about myself, although I'm a coach and yoga teacher. So will SBSM help me with feelings of being stuck in old trauma and my feelings not being able to make big life decisions? Yes. I have great fear taking actions, making choices, getting out of victim mode. I find it really hard to feel what I deeply want, to let go of resentment, and I have feelings of low self-esteem. So the overarching answer for me is yes. Now, of course, you have to do the work. You have to show up. You have to want to get out of victim identification, which means getting into the role of I deserve to have this. That is me or was me, and I want out of that. I want to change. And so these shifts in our neurosystem, in our nervous system, in our neurochemistry, and our neurophysiology, it takes time, it takes commitment, and it takes patience. This kind of overarching question is usually, as you say, you have stuck old trauma. It's usually, I'm making a big sweeping broad generalization here, some kind of early developmental trauma, something where we were told that we were just a terrible person, usually by our parents, or we were not treated well, or love was conditional, or we weren't allowed to express who we are. And so when that occurs, we do grow low self-esteem. We feel these urges to be ourselves, but then there's something in our, not only our psyche, but our physiology that says, don't do that, you're going to get in trouble. Stay small, stay stuck, stay, I say this with air quotes, safe, because if we express ourselves, we're going to get hit, we're going to get sent to the room, we're going to get screamed at, or our parent is going to get abused because we've just done something that's off, that's not right, that isn't acceptable. And so these are the kind of things that keep us stuck, and they keep us from making decisions. We become paralyzed in moving forward. So one of the big things that we work on in SBSM is working with healthy anger, healthy aggression, healthy life force energy. We don't get into this until about week 7, 6 within the program, 8 actually, because we need to build foundation so that a system can handle the lovely explosions of life force energy and setting boundaries. So if our boundaries were violated when we were young, and it doesn't have to just be physical or sexual abuse, it could be we started to say something really cool and then we were told to shut up. That harms us, that harms our healthy life force energy. And so being able to push forward, the word aggression, healthy aggression, which is using anger in a positive, contained way. Aggression comes from the Latin word aggredi, which means to push forward, to move forward. It's like, get out of my way, this is what I have to do. So part of this work is finding the foundation, the capacity, so that we can push through and feel good about it. But it doesn't work for me to say, just get angry and throw your fists in the air. It has to come organically out of us, and that takes time. And so you say here, after years of personal development, psychological help, lots of books. I keep coming back to this point in my life where I'm scared shitless of really taking my life in my own hands. Now, this is interesting, Grace. If you haven't watched a video that I did on what is healthy aggression, when we're babies, when we're with our mother and we start to pull on her hair, or we scratch, or we hit, or we bite at her nipple when we're feeding, sometimes what a mother will do, if they don't understand what those actions are, which is the sympathetic starting to pop up, the healthy life force is starting to pop up, a mother will take, and this is just a general thing, but it happens, she'll take that baby's hand, she'll slap them, or she'll pull the hand away and put them down and say, don't hurt mommy, that's not right, don't do that, you don't hurt mommy, right? I'm acting here, guys. If that happened to us, we get a very strong imprint somatically before we cognitively could make sense of what the heck is going on. I just felt my desire to pull and show my mother my strength, and I just got slapped, and she just poisoned me with venom from her words. I'm scared now. I'm not going to do that ever again, right? As opposed to baby's pulling on the hair, she's scratching, and mom goes, oh my God, look at those strong little hands of yours. Let's play a game. Let's pull. Let's feel your strength. Pull, 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 right? That will then send a signal into that little infant that isn't cognitively online yet, but is somatically online, to say, holy cow, I'm so strong, and my mother's playing with me and she's letting me be strong, right? So I'm very passionate about that, because I think a lot of our struggle in society, we think it's what happened to us on the playground. We think it's what happened at the dinner table. It can go back as far as that. And of course, it can go back as far as utero, when we're in mom's tummy and she's constantly loading us with stress chemicals, right? And the umbilical cord is there and she's hitting us with all this adrenaline, and we're wanting to get away. We're wanting to fight it and flee from that adrenaline, but we're locked in the closet of the womb, right? This is inescapable attack. We're trying to get away from that, but we can't. And so what happens? We start to shut down. So these stories, these imprints, they are very deep and very old. So you say, as I read, SBSM helps with chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia, cancer, etc., which I believe I don't have. I suffer more from mental issues. Will SBSM help me with these problems? 100% yes. We know that the mental, the thought-based patterns, these things of stuckness, they are grounded in the dysregulation of the physiology. Everyone is just a little bit different based on how they were raised, how they were talked to, and of course the genetics of the ancestry. I will say this though, with time, if this physiology doesn't get in check, and this isn't to scare anyone, often we will get sick. Many people that we know who die don't just pass away in their sleep with zero health problems, right? We know from the ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences study, everything from cancer to heart disease to addictions to osteoarthritis, Alzheimer's. So many things are connected to the level of stress and adversity we had in early life. Okay, a few more questions. More than a few. Okay, thank you. Someone asks, Lauren, RMT, could you direct me to resources on information that validates your claims that we hold deep stuff? I wish I had one study to give you, but the one I just mentioned, the ACE study, that's about as factual as we can get. And I know that science isn't fact, but when science is shown, research has shown over and over again the same results across multiple nations, multiple times, with tens of thousands of people. The original ACE study had 17,000 people in it. That deep stuff is the illnesses. It is the psychiatric conditions. I don't share this very often, but I have pictures of my body after I've released emotion around my injuries, and I will have the most hideous rash come out around the areas that were operated on. And it makes no sense because these operations happened 20 years ago. I've been with people, working with them with surgical trauma, and we're working on the freeze that they are in from that surgical trauma, and you start to smell the anesthetic in the air, and that surgery was, again, years and years ago. People will report to, memories that they've never had coming up and out again. So the thing with the human body, the way in which we want proof via science, sometimes it works, and that's beautiful why the ACE study has given us so much. But a lot of the intricacy, the complexity, the way in which we have cleverly held trauma, not just in our nervous system, but in our immune system, in our digestive system, in our cardiovascular system, it's kind of almost too overwhelming to be able to track it properly, right? And so I wish I could say this is the one resource, this is the one science study, but we haven't developed the tools, from what I know, not yet at least, to study how this stuff moves through. This is why autonomic dysregulation syndromes like POTS and fibromyalgia and RSD, Renaud's are so confusing. One day someone's hands are completely fine, and the next day they're completely blue and purple and they can't move them. And then the next day there's an autoimmune flare, and the next day there isn't. We know of people that have dissociative identity disorder who will have a diabetic condition when they're in one alter personality, and then they're in the other personality, and they don't have that condition. It's very hard to study those things, but we know through case studies, talking with colleagues, personal experience, that we do hold a lot of deep stuff. And like I said a little while ago at the beginning, if you didn't make it, Lauren, I'm amazed that my system is still producing pain patterns and shock trauma patterns from 25 years of sport that I did in my teens and childhood years and 20s. It's still coming out. It came out last Friday, and it's being held in these, not just joints and diaphragms, but in the fascia, in the muscle tissue, in the bone. So really we have to kind of have an inner belief and a knowing that there's more than what we can see with our five senses and with just what is right in front of us. Hope that gives you a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of juice there. Okay, gonna get back to the questions here. One from, oh goodness, this name, Ozgun. I'm not good with the O's with the two little dots on top. Hope I got that right. So you are in Europe, as I would assume by your name. So you had burnout 2 years ago. I made a lot of progress. And having worked with a psychotherapist, a coach, and a shiatsu practitioner, however, I'm still not completely recovered. It's going very slowly, he said. I'm also scared that the moment I go back to work, I will get another burnout. In the meantime, I decided to become a well-being coach to help others avoid what I have been through. I'm in limbo about joining SBSM this year. I'm not sure if I need it since I don't consider my traumas too big. What has your experience been regarding recovery from work-related burnout? It's been very positive. I mean, I can talk about that in my own system, but I've seen my students, my clients. I'm thinking right now of Janet Raftis, one of our alum, another video recently that was put out. I'm gapping on the name. There's so many of them. But when we are able to be with our system at this stress physiology level, we're better able to listen to what we need and when we need to slow down, when we need to maybe get a little bit stimulated and activated and move, rest, food, all these things, resources. I do believe that it's important, if you want to work with others, work on yourself first. And there is kind of this, there's this thing that occurs when someone is not well, and their not wellness is due to early stuff. And I will say, you said you don't have a lot of big traumas. Do not underestimate the little traumas, the little T's, the insidious things that aren't big car accidents or stories of abuse. Those are traumatic. But what I've seen, and a lot of my colleagues will back me up on this, It's the little micro traumas that actually are trickier sometimes to work with, because there is no distinct event. There is no distinct, it started here and it ended here. If we were brought up in an environment where our safety was kind of compromised in a 50% kind of way, that still means we're not safe. We're either safe or we're not safe growing up. It's binary, right? And so that level of low-level unsafety is enough to teach us as a human being to be slightly on guard all the time, to have to do a little bit extra. And I'm going to speak to burnout, because a lot of folks who burn out, they don't realize that they're overriding their physiology. They're not listening to their internal chemistry. They're pushing always just a little bit, just a little bit. And it's often in service to keep ourselves safe, but also to make sure that the people around us don't blow up. And so we can get into a kind of form of wanting to always help others. So I think it's interesting, Ozgun, that you say that you wanted to be a wellness coach to help others to avoid what you've been through. I think that is very important. And also to look at what is it in your system that really needs healing and nurturing, so that you can get more resiliency, more regulation, more restoration to your system. Because there's a concept called the wounded healer. And I've worked with lots of people that would put themselves into that category, and that they start to get better. And as soon as they're better, they are like, okay, I need to help others. I need to shout from the rooftops what I've just learned. And that's really good and important. And if they haven't done this deeper nervous system, cellular, organ, body, somatic based work, it's like a house. The foundation of the house isn't strong enough, and they're starting to put fixtures on the top level of the house, and they don't even realize that the foundation hasn't been laid and solidified yet, and then they fall off the ladder because it just isn't strong enough to hold them. So if you're in limbo and if you're in this boat, I don't know how old you are. My sense is you're a little younger, but I'm making an assumption there. Get into this now, because the burnout is not something that just goes away. If we don't learn how to listen to that stress chemistry, it will eventually get us. Okay. Final page, and I will get down to these questions here. Just reading. Hello from the UK. Emma, you asked about narcissistic parents. I answered that actually in a few Q&As a little while ago. Crystal, you might be able to find it through the timestamps. Just looking here. I'm just going to follow up on something I talked about regarding the healthy aggression. So someone said, thank you for talking about how we should treat a baby. Will you be able to share more information on how to be a good mother in your classes? Not directly, and yes. When we have regulation in our system, we just know what to do. I know that might seem oversimplistic, but think about it this way. Animals in the wild who are healthy, they know what to do. There's no manual, there's no book, there's no pediatrician. They know what to do. It is innately within mammals how to take care of their young, how to clean them, how to feed them, how to protect them, how to teach them how to hunt, all the things they have to do. And then usually in most situations, they leave, right? Humans, we're kind of screwed in a way because of culture and society and conditioning and industrialization and domestication. We've created all these different ways. We're supposed, oh, I'm doing this kind of parenting, I'm doing that kind of parenting. In my opinion, there should just be one kind of parenting, and that is regulated, co-regulated, attached, secure, attuned work, modeling with the little one. It's really quite simple when we have that on board. But you throw in the work life, you throw in the home life, you throw in another parent that doesn't have the same ideals, perspectives, and then you have a recipe for all of our craziness, right? All of our human condition. But really, at the end of the day, a baby here in Canada wants to be treated the same way a baby in Russia does, a baby in the Philippines, a baby in wherever, right? It's the same thing. And so when we get that regulation on board, when we learn how to attune to ourselves and listen to our gut instincts, we know exactly what to do. It's just that we've been so programmed and so socially engineered to not trust our gut. And that is as simple as it can get. So yes and no would be the answer to that question. Okay, I'm going to get back to the questions here. One question from Julia. Looks like you're already, yes, Julia, you're already enrolled. You've done everything, which is great. Okay. You know how important the nervous system work is, obviously. So I sometimes get the extreme work that all other work, so psychic work, coaching, training, can only really be valuable if both the client as well as the professional know what is at least the way to regulate a nervous system. So in a roundabout way, you are correct there. I think that if you are working with someone as a professional, you should have that knowledge on board, because your client is coming to you because they're in need of help, right? I'm trying to also teach the people who are the clients and the students what to ask for when they see someone. And I know this can be very frustrating, I should say, because not many people are trauma informed the right way. The right way, meaning understanding these deeper levels of the nervous system, the somatic physiology, etc. So we're at a place right now where we're not going to find perfection quite yet. But yes, it's important for the professional to know, and then for the professional to, as they see fit, educate the client, the student, in a way that's titrated, and of course, if they want it. So you said, sometimes I give a bad consciousness when not telling my client about the polyvagal theory because it has such an impact for the client, not relatable to this topic at first glimpse, or when doing an apprenticeship in whatever area. What would you suggest on how to continue living with this kind of predicament? It seems like a bit of a barrier to me. So, I actually don't talk about the polyvagal theory a lot. I've done videos on it. But if we are living the polyvagal theory, if we understand that ventral vagal connection is the first ladder piece, and then if that doesn't work, like if we are understanding the physiology, we don't have to, if a person doesn't want it, we don't have to say it to them. It's like if I came across a child on the street, or even an adult who just hurt themselves, I'm not going to say, okay, I know this thing called the polyvagal theory, and what it says is that for me to calm down and for you to calm down, we should talk to each other with low tone voices, and we should, where are you? What's your name? My name's this. I'm going to help you. Can I call someone? We're not going to say, I'm going to use the theories to help you calm down. We're just going to be like, oh my gosh, are you okay? Can I help you? Let's get you into some safety. So we act it out in a way that is just being human in a regulated state. I hope that makes sense. So don't stress about not getting all the terms to them. I mean, I created SBSM because I wanted to teach people who wanted to know the real facts and theories and details, the details. But not everybody's going to want to know the details. They just want to be treated well, right? And then you say, I know your answer probably would be that I should take care of my own regulation first. I agree, that's true. But what could I directly do when being in contact with my client? Being aware of orienting, that's clear, but sometimes I have the feeling that give my client some kind of a one-pager. Yeah, so there's no reason why we couldn't, as practitioners, create our own resources. People can be creative. Maybe it's an audio, maybe it's an article, maybe it's just some basics. I think that can be really helpful, and sometimes people appreciate that. But I would say to keep working on your own system, to keep working on your own sense of comfort in not knowing what to do, right? Because if we come into a client session And if we have an agenda of what we are going to think in our head, I'm going to orient now, okay, now, then it's not in our cells, it's still in our cognition. So that just means we have more work to do. We have to do more work outside of the therapeutic situation so that we become more fluid, more in flow with our physiology. But yeah, it's a disaster if we come into a client session and we're having to cognitively remember what to do. This is what I was saying earlier about how there's just not enough time in the basic SE training to practice. I always use the example of medical school. I love shows like Grey's Anatomy and ER, if you guys remember ER back in the day when George Clooney was new. But you think about something like Grey's Anatomy, you watch that from the beginning, those medical students know nothing. They are completely green. They don't know how to, they pass out when they see blood, but rigorously over and over again, they're put into more situations so that, you know, when they're in a training environment, they are having to remember the steps. But then you look at, you know, if you follow that show, sorry guys who don't follow that show, you look at the end point where they're in like the 17th season and the kiddos that didn't know anything are now teaching the new residents, and they're just like master surgeons, just doing it organically with their bodies. So this is the level that I want to see practitioners get to. It's like with the baby. If a baby is crying, it's not the best thing if we're having to think, okay, I have to ground myself first, and then I have to take a breath, and I better find my essential oil, and then I can pick up my baby and soothe it. No, right? We want to have that ability to just pick the baby up and know instantly what to do because it's coming from the inside, not from a list that we have. And so when we're working with people, again, whether you're a massage therapist, a social worker, whatever, getting this information on board and using it in your own world and life, and then letting it come in naturally, I find is a little bit better than, okay, I'm going to try this today with this client. I saw people do that in the SE training. They would try to do one thing that they learned in the training in their, say, psychotherapy practice. And often they would get very frustrated because they were trying to impose an exercise on their client. And that client needed to cry that day, or that client just needed to sit there and lay and have someone have their hands on them. They didn't want to practice orienting. Like, you want me to look around the room? Why? And then instantly that polyvagal theory, the defense comes up. I don't want to look around the room, right? It's like, oh, but we're supposed to orient. Well, if a person doesn't want to orient, then don't force them to orient. So I'm kind of giving this a little bit of a dance around just to give an overarching view of when we're really skilled in our own physiology and we get a little bit more of this knowledge on board, we become those surgeons, right? We become just more apt and more adept at knowing what to do, but not because we're thinking about it, because we're just doing it the way we would caring for a sick child, as one example. Okay. One more question, which is less about working with clients, but it's really important because it has to do with the vagus nerve and some of the things that people are teaching people. But I'm going to get into the comments here, and then we will slowly wrap up for today. Just a quick note again, that we are open for registration for SmartBody SmartMind until the end of this weekend, Sunday, the 7th of March. We only run this once a year. That is it. The live registration happens for these 2 weeks, and then we close registration and we don't open it up again until this time next year. And so if you are feeling a pull, an urge to get this information now and start learning with me, now is the time. The knowledge, the lessons stay with you all throughout the year. Even though we're live in the session, think of it like university. We're in our semester of live learning from this Monday, March 8th until the 5th of June. We do a little bit of study hall into July, where you can still ask questions of my team. And then once we're done that session, that live semester of nervous system learning and apprenticeship, you then take that information Everything lives on a program site, so you have access to it 24/7 whenever you want, and you keep working on the material. You keep working on the lessons. You repeat the lessons. You listen to the training calls or the Q&A calls that you maybe didn't attend live when we were in session because you were busy, and that's fine. But it gives you, and people will say, I have enough content to last me for like months and months and months, and you will have enough content to keep learning. So do not worry if you're worried that you're not going to be able to stay up to date with everything. Most people don't. I'll be really honest there. If any of our alum are here, you can chime in. Most people take a few years to get through the whole curriculum. That's because it is that robust. It's simple, it's potent, and there's a lot in it. Right? It's not just a few video trainings and a few audio exercises. There's a lot in there to keep you busy for many years. And our alum come back over and over again to repeat the program with us when we come into that live session semester. Okay. Just going to get in here to some of the questions I'm scanning. Thanks for all your comments, guys and gals. Thanks, Paula. Wonderful. This is some of the most interesting information available on the internet. It is interesting, isn't it? I'm probably one of the only folks doing this, at least in this world, at this level. Yeah, someone who's a member says, I got to module 8, lab 8, but I continued for a few weeks after the program ended, of course. So like I said, if you're wanting to eat well and exercise well and treat your body and take care of your skin, you don't just stop at 12 weeks. So there's like this mind shift we have to make with this online learning. It's a course, yes, it's a set time, and then we want you to continue to do the work. It's like we're giving you a bit of a pulse, a head start to be together. We're all together. You get to talk to me in our forums and learn and ask questions way beyond what we're getting into today. And then you've got to keep doing the work, right? It doesn't end when we end the course. We want to keep going. There's no tuition for the alum. So all you alum, if for some reason you don't know this little detail, when you join at the tuition that is now, which is just under $2,000, $1,997 US, that's it. Like, alumni come back and back and back. You can come back into the forum. You can ask us questions. You can attend the live calls. It's a one-time investment, right? And then you're in. So think of this as not just something that you're spending that money on for the next 12 weeks. We have alumni that have been around since the first session, and we are now going into our 10th session. So do the math. I don't know what that would be, but this will keep on giving. You will keep getting, if we have improvements, like this year, we've added in some new things. I've refreshed some of the lessons. You get those free of charge. So it is, and it looks like a massive amount of money. And for some people, it might not be possible, but see this as long-term. Take that number and divide it by, 2 years, and you'll see kind of that cost-benefit relationship there. Okay, this is my 3rd round of SBSM. I'm on my 2nd round, and I took a whole year just to get to lab 3. Yes, that just shows how powerful going slow is. And that's the power of the online world, is if you have had enough for the day, you just shut me off, right? Like, I haven't had enough, Irene, that's it. I'm going to come back to you tomorrow. And I'm not there to look at you and shame you for stopping. Not that I would ever do that anyway, but it's like you're done for the day and you stop and you come back to it later that night or the next morning. So there's a level of self-reliance that's really good. There's a level of safety that is actually really wonderful for folks who've had early trauma and developmental trauma. So it's all very good the way the online world has worked. And also, we've been perfecting this for 9 rounds, right? And so we've done the online learning thing for many, many, many years. So we've tested things, we've made mistakes, we've improved upon things. Okay, I'm going to get back to one question here from Cindy. So this isn't regards to so much coaching and people that are in the training world, but it's an important one. So I'm going to end on this. So you said, I wanted to ask guidance on a situation I'm experiencing with a traumatized client. So you are someone working with someone. I don't know what you do. I'm going to make this more general. So you say, is it possible for the vagus nerve, so the vagus nerve is the parasympathetic nervous system, to require the opposite of toning? So toning is stuff that we do, like humming, gargling, chanting, extending the exhale, that makes a person with trauma feel less grounded, dizzy, lightheaded. So what you're saying is you're doing maybe these things with your clients that we are told to do that helps the parasympathetic, but then the person is going to feel less grounded, dizzy, lightheaded, uncentered. Does this happen when a person is in shutdown? Maybe they need something before toning the vagus nerve so they can handle discharging the physiology. Some clients cannot even close their eyes. Can a person be so traumatized that starting to tone the vagus nerve is dangerous? So yes, and this is why, remember what I was talking about a little while ago when I was answering Julia's question about how if someone comes into our office, we shouldn't just say, okay, start orienting, or okay, we're going to tone the vagus nerve. This is the danger of a lot of these bargain basement suggestions for improving the vagus nerve. We can't just assume that one person who gets super benefit from orienting is going to get benefit from orienting with another person. One person will be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like just looking around. I'm feeling my system calm down. The same person, or so a different person will do the same lesson and they will feel absolute terror when they look around. Their heart will start the race as soon as they actively engage with the environment. This is a sign of a dysregulated nervous system, right? Doesn't mean that the person that is finding calm doesn't have dysregulation. Their system is just different. And so when we think of this whole vagus nerve toning thing, the vagus nerve needs safety. It needs what it needs. And it might not be safe for that person to start to hum, to start to make sound. Their capacity might be so small. I saw someone ask about window of tolerance. They might not even have a window of tolerance. Their window might be a line. There's no window. And so any stimulus, even though it's positive, according to popular press articles, to tone the vagus nerve, someone has no window of tolerance. They don't even know how to sense their system. And you ask them to gargle, chant, work on their breath, their system is going to say, what the heck are you doing? This is not safe. And then it flips. The dizziness is the system going into a shutdown response. So is the person shutting down? It's possible that that person is already shut down. They are living in a functional freeze, or they're living in a very high tone dorsal. And this is why I really can't stand a lot of the quick tips for toning the vagus nerve. If we don't understand the different branches of the vagus nerve, how they work, and then the sub-branches within the dorsal vagus nerve and how different traumas affect these things, we are basically asking someone to just go through a whole list of things without understanding where they are right now. And so toning the vagus nerve it's not that it's dangerous, it's inaccurate, because the vagus nerve is not just one thing. The vagus nerve has two main branches. One is social, one is slowing down. Part of that slowing down, one is shutdown, and one is for shock and deep states of terror and fear. The other is rest digest. It's when we repair, when we rejuvenate. And so if we are doing these exercises with people, we have, my opinion, at least my professional opinion, we have to make sure that we understand where a person is in their physiology. And if we don't know where they are in their physiology and we don't know these different branches, I don't think we should be teaching people these toning exercises, because we're not understanding what's actually happening at the level. It's like the whole ice bath phenomena, right? I've written about that. I've vlogged about that. If we don't understand what's happening when the system hits cold ice water and we're telling someone to do it every day because it's good for them, because it was good for one person, that, in my opinion, is a version of malpractice that it's not good, right? Because it actually could harm that person even more. So I got a little fiery with that, but I see so many pieces of misinformation out there around, if you do these toning exercises, you're going to reset the nervous system. You might reset it, you might change it, but you're not going to regulate it at that deep core level. There's a difference between finding a little bit of calm, right, and coming out of an activation cycle versus hardcore, solid regulation of the system where there's a big window of tolerance and the person can take whatever comes to them, get a little blip of stress, and then come back down, right? And that's what we want. We want to restore that good self-regulation back to the system. All right. Whew. All right, I think that's it for today. I want to just acknowledge everyone who's here, who's stuck around and listened to me just go about all these topics. The questions that were submitted were wonderful regarding those who work in the healing, helping industry. I started off, if you missed it at the beginning, go back and listen to the replay, why I started, how I started this work. My path of continually looking for more and searching for more. If you are on my email list, you would have gotten an email from me today, earlier this morning, that kind of outlines my beliefs. We're not going to be able to do this work and ignore the nervous system for very long. People are getting smart, right? The people here who aren't the practitioners and healers and teachers, you guys are here because you want a practitioner and you want to understand and have your people understand this level of nervous system awareness. So for all of those here who are teachers and healers and mind body pros, I'm going to encourage, I'm going to challenge you to go out of your comfort zone, step up a little bit on your path of education, but most importantly, getting your own system in line with your nervous system physiology. Because if you are not in line in your system, it is very hard, if not next to impossible, to attune with your clients, your groups, your students, and their multitude of varieties within their systems, right? Being able to have that resilience and that regulation within yourself will give you the knowledge of how to work with them from a real basic cellular level. And then the final thing I'll say is, so often as coaches and healers, we just go to training after training after training, adding more tools into our box. I'm going to do this training, that training. And very rarely do we actually do something that is just for our own healing. But I know, again, from working with my students, that this self-healing, this self-learning will inform your practice as well as your own physiology and your own health. All right, everybody, I'm going to hang up for now. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Like I said, Sunday is the final day to get in for SmartBody SmartMind 2021. After that, we close doors. We start on Monday with orientation week. We have a call at 11 a.m. Pacific. So get in with the pre-course materials. If you have questions that are more technical, send an email to us, support@irenelyon.com. I'm going to do another Q&A on Friday morning, this Friday Pacific, and then another one on Sunday at 12. A lot of the questions that people are asking, like what if I can't attend the live calls, these sorts of things, they're all answered on our site. So take some time to read the FAQ page. There's a lot of information there. That's it for today. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.